This is your reminder that self doubt is so normal for a creative, and you are not alone. Feel the feeling, know that it's real and it's so valid, but we can't let it keep us down. We have gifts that need to be used, so let's do that. Welcome to Creatively by Estelle, a podcast for creative and performing artists. My name is Estelle Avberry, and I'm your host. Whether you're just starting or you're a pro, this show will help you feel inspired and motivated every single week along your creative journey, and will give you tactical tools and tips for fulfilling your creative goals and your God-given purpose as a creative person. You have gifts to give, so let's do this. Let's live creatively, and let's get into the episode. Hey, welcome back to the Creatively by Estelle podcast. I'm so glad that you're here. I can't wait for you to hear the episode today. It's actually a live that I did the other day. I've been going live for the past 2 weeks, once a week, so twice so far. And I like recording it to share just so that you can hear what's on my heart. And I hope that you like it. Let me know if you do. Today's live was a heart to heart that I kind of had talking about experiencing self-doubt and how to combat that in like ways or things that I'm doing that I think are helpful that might help you. Um, and so, yeah, definitely let me know if you found this helpful. I think you will definitely be inspired. I mentioned some things that Beverly Adeze mentioned in our episode together, the last episode, um, and or a couple episodes ago. And I think that will also really reinforce that for you as well. And it's just a reminder that, this is a process, it's a journey, as you continue to uncover your creative giftings and focus in on them and figure out how to use them. Or maybe you already know what your gifts are and you're using them, but just to continue to use them more effectively or to just remain empowered and to remain motivated along your journey. Just a reminder that self doubt will come and it's totally normal and you're not alone in it at all. Right. And yeah, I just wanted to give you that reminder and also to let you know that it doesn't have to keep you down. And this is a reminder to myself too, right? That yes, I experience self doubt. Yes, I experience, imposter syndrome, fear, all of these other emotions that are very valid and very human, right? Um, but it doesn't mean that I don't keep going. You know, I acknowledge the feelings. I know that they're there, but they don't get to be in the driver's seat, right? They don't get to guide my decisions. I keep going. I keep doing what I know I need to do. I keep using the gifts I've been given. I keep being creative, right? Living creatively, and using those gifts and growing them because it's what I love. It's something that I've been given that I have this beautiful responsibility to do something with and to yeah to grow in that and become the best that I can be as a singer, as a performer, as an artist, and to hopefully impact other people through that, through me just being myself and me using those gifts for the glory of God and for the good of others and for my own good too, because I'm the first one who misses out if I don't use my gifts, right? You're the first one who misses out if you don't use your gifts, right? You don't get to experience that fulfillment and that joy of doing the thing that you have been uniquely gifted to do, that you love to do and that you want to grow in. And so yeah, that's really where I'm at and what I'm thinking about. And if you're there too, then welcome. Join me along the ride, along this creative journey, right? And I hope this inspires you and that you can relate to it. If your thing is singing, just like my thing is, then definitely go to the link in the show notes, creativelybyestelle.com/sing, to sign up for this workshop that I'm doing literally this weekend. So run, and make sure that you sign up and show that you're interested because I really want to do it. It's going to be like 1 hour on Saturday morning, super chill, not high stress, not high stakes, but just for you to come and sing. We're going to sing together in a group setting, virtually on Zoom. We're going to sing together and basically talk about how we can continue to grow as singers And as creatives, we'll do a warm up, we'll sing some songs, some musical theater. It's going to be musical theater themed, sing some show tunes, and it's going to be really fun. So make sure that you go to that link in the show notes for more information. It really breaks it down there. And I talk about it a little bit in this episode as well. So I think if you know that singing is something that you have always wanted to try, this is for all levels, but especially beginners, this is something that you definitely want to get in on. And if you'd like to do a one on one session as well, I'm still doing free beginner voice coaching sessions, just because I want to get to know you guys as listeners and see what you want to grow in as singers, as creatives as well. And so we can help each other in that. So, yeah, let me know. All of the information is in the show notes. Definitely go to that page. Again, it's creativelybyestelle.com/sing and sign up there if you're interested in this free workshop. It's going to be so much fun. You do not want to miss out. Thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it, and I'm excited for you to hear the episode today. So, without further ado, let's get into the episode. Real quick, before we continue with the episode, I want to let you know that if you're a creative person who wants to share your creative gift or whatever you're passionate about with other people and create an online community, a podcast is an amazing way to do it. And you can start a podcast today with Anchor by Spotify. It's such an easy way to make a podcast. Trust me. I'm not a tech person and I did it. So if I can do it, honey, you can too, okay? Anchor has tools to allow you to record and edit your podcast from your phone or your computer. And you can host on Anchor and it will distribute your podcast to platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. So you don't have to worry about, uploading your podcast to all these different sites. And it's everything that you need to make a podcast in one place. And it's 100% free. So there you go. Let's go. Start your podcast, create your online community, download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. All right, without further ado, let's continue. Right now, I'm very much trying to grow, right? Just like I think everyone is, we're all trying to grow and become who we are meant to be, who we're called to be, right? And I think the thing that really gets in the way for me, I think we all have things that get in our way when we're trying to become who God has called us to be. And I think for me, one of the things that comes up a lot is the self-doubt and questioning myself. Am I this enough? Am I that enough? And I think a lot of people deal with that. I know we all deal with that because I like to talk to people, and thankfully I have good friends who ask me these questions and reflect these things back to me, and people who reflect these things back to me and are like, okay, like you're clearly like doubting yourself and this, and this, right? And I think that especially when it comes to being creative and wanting to use your gifts, the self-doubt is automatically gonna come, like without question, because, and I think the first thing is to remember that what comes right before the doubt and the word is self, right? It's that focusing on like, I'm not good enough, I'm not this enough, I'm not that enough, as opposed to I woke up another day, like if I'm alive to see this day, there's a reason, right? And that reason is that I still have a purpose. God still has a purpose and a plan for me and for my life and for my gifts, and He's going to use them. And so, yeah, like that's, I think, switching that focus from self, from me, I'm not this enough, I'm not that enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not whatever, and then turning it towards, oh, God has something for me. Oh, God has given me this gift to use, to grow, to work on, to blink, to do blink with, right? And so for me, that's something that I'll go through seasons where I'm like, okay, I'm good. Like, I feel like I've spent time in prayer, talking to people about these doubts or these questions or whatever. And now I'm good. I got it. Like, I know exactly what I'm doing. And then, you'll face the next thing, or you're like, okay, just kidding, or okay, that didn't work out quite the way that I thought it would, and then that self-doubt can come up again. But I think the more we practice switching that focus back to what really matters and away from self and away from looking at my inadequacies, my imperfections, my faults and quote unquote failures, and then switch to no, this is what God has put in my heart to do, or this is the gift that God has given me that Estelle keeps talking about on her podcast. Yes, all the time. I'm always talking about the fact that you have been given gifts. And like, if you ever listen to the show, if you ever consume any of the content that I put out, like, it's always about pointing you to be creative and to use your gifts that God's given you and figure out how you can, plan towards your creative goals and whatnot. And I think that if you have that, if you're like drawn to that content, if you're drawn to the podcast, if you're drawn to singing, to dancing, I really love to focus on the performing arts because that to me is the most fun creative outlet for me personally. And so I like to focus on the performing arts, but I think creativity is a very broad topic and broad area. So, but I think that if you're drawn to any of that, then of course, of course you have something in you that needs to come out. Like, that's something that God put in you. We're all creative, honestly. Like, as humans, we're all creative. We all have the ability to create something new, right? We all have that ability to innovate, to think outside the box. That I'm looking at the time. We all have the ability to create and to think outside the box. Hey, Jalen. And stuff like that. But I think that, at least for me, we tend to doubt ourselves and doubt our abilities, doubt what we are able to do. And again, I think it's because we're so focused on ourselves and like, oh my gosh, I'm inadequate. I'm not this enough. I'm not that enough. Hey, I'm not this enough. I'm not that enough. So like, I can never do anything that I feel like God has called me to do or anything that God has put on my heart to do. And it's really just that focusing on self, like that self-doubt instead of faith in God, faith in what God has given me to do, faith in and knowing that I have a gift and I have this that I know that I can do. And so, yeah, that's something that I've come up against and I keep coming up against, but like I said, I think it's the reframing my mindset to focus not on like myself and my inadequacies, but then to focus on I woke up another day. That means I have a purpose. God has a purpose and plan for me. So let's focus on that. And it takes intentionality. Like, it's not something that everyone has different personalities and temperaments, but for the most part, as humans, we have to make the decision what we're going to focus on, what we give our minds. What are we going to give our minds to focus on, basically? So, yeah, I'm trying to make that decision to focus on this is what I know God's given me to do, and I'm going to stay focused on that. Amen. Yes. So, yeah. And I think I had Beverly Adeze on the podcast yesterday. We talked last week and her episode came out yesterday and it was so good. Our conversation was so good. And she talked a lot about being led by the Spirit of God. She talked a lot about sorry, I had an email. But she talked a lot about being led by the Spirit of God and knowing that she had a gift in her that she had to put to use. She, like myself, grew up a daughter of immigrants, right? And you definitely feel that pressure that you need to do, you want to do certain things because you have this, there's been so much put into you being who you are and where you are, right? Because of all your parents sacrificed and everything. And that's so true. And a lot of people deal with that, but especially children of immigrants. And so
I think, and she really said it really nice, like beautifully. So go back and listen to that episode. It's so good. And she was saying that, even though, she wanted to, like, it would have been easier for her to go the traditional route. She was, pre-med in college and all of that. But she knew that she had, like, after she graduated and then, like, she she uh, she was starting to do like comedy and stuff like that. But then once COVID happened, it's when she really started going all in, and she realized that she had to put what God had gifted her to do above everything else. And that was really, I think that was really impactful for me to hear, and hopefully for everyone else to hear too. Putting that, like, what does God put in my heart to do, and making God's desire for me greater than anyone else's desire, including my own, right? Including your own desires or your own doubts, right? Putting God's desires above all of that, right? And if God has given you gifts to use, if He's given you this creative desire, right, to this desire to be creative in this way or that or another way, right? He has given you those gifts for a reason. So what are you going to do about it? Like, now it's up to you. What are you going to do about it? And I coach myself. I'm like, okay, Steph, what are you going to do? Like, are you going to sit around and let those gifts die? Or are you going to take action and actually do something to fulfill your God given potential? Like, it's a decision, and it's a decision that you can make every single day. And like, that's the decision that I have to choose every single day. So, yeah, and I talk about this a lot on the podcast. And for me right now, that looks like doing the podcast, because I know that I want to inspire and empower and help artists and help people um, embrace and walk in their creative gifts, and to embrace their artistic talents and actually do something about it. And yeah, so that's why I love doing the podcast. I love talking to artists and learning from them. And I'm so excited. I have two more people I just booked for two more interviews that I'm so excited about. And I can't wait to share them with you when they come out. And they're both dancers, which is funny, but yeah, they're both great. And um, so the podcast is one of those focus areas. Another one of those focus areas for me is singing and growing as a vocalist, and also sharing that with other people. Okay, so actually, if you or anyone that you know is looking to grow vocally or as a singer, I'm hosting a virtual workshop. I'm prepping for a virtual workshop and eventually membership, but really prepping for a virtual free workshop where we can get together online and just sing together and talk about, stepping into our creative dreams and trying to be creative and doing that through music, through singing. So it's going to be fun. You can go to, actually, I guess I could put it in the comments, but it's at creativelybyestelle.com/sing. Yeah, you can go there, and yeah, it just like that breaks down everything um that is going to go on in the workshop. I'm also doing one-on-one singing sessions, like feedback sessions, basically beginner voice coaching, which I've done before a couple years ago. Like, well, near the beginning of the pandemic, I did a little bit of it because I've sung my whole life. I've done voice lessons, did voice lessons in college, classical training, but I love musical theater, and that's really what I love to focus on. But any song, any singing, like any style of singing, I really want to just um, yeah, start talking to some listeners and seeing things that you're struggling with creatively and stuff like that. So that's why I wanted to do these free one-on-one sessions where we can talk about creativity, but we can also sing if you want to grow as a singer. So yeah, that's what we're doing. That's what's going on, really, that I'm focusing on outside of work and church and family and life and all that. So yeah, so those are the things that I'm focusing on creatively. And that's, like, as I continue to do that, I continue to sing, I continue to audition for shows and stuff. I'm planning to do a show this summer. I'm so excited. God willing. It's at the place that I take dance classes from. Yeah, I'm really excited. They're doing a show this summer. So I'm definitely going to audition for that. And yeah, of course, I'll be singing more. You guys, if you follow me on Instagram, TikTok, you know I'm always singing. So yeah, that's like what my creative focus is right now. And again, just like we were talking about before, like you always bump up against that negativity, that self doubt. But I think switching that mindset and making that decision that yeah, I'm going to I'm not going to let my gifts die. Like I'm going to make a decision that I'm not going to just sit it out. I'm going to do something about these gifts that I have. So yeah. And if you know anyone who wants to do something about that, their gifts and their thing is that they want to sing, let them know. Or if you want to do it, let me know and we can get you signed up for a one-on-one session, free session, or the free workshop. I'm so excited about it, and I'm really excited that people have already started showing interest, which is cool. Before I go, though, I do also want to mention that in addition to overcoming self-doubt in order to figure out, okay, what are my dreams, what am I working towards, what are the gifts I have, and how am I going to take steps towards them. The other thing is too, which I talk about on the podcast a lot, is like setting those goals, right? Figuring out those focus areas, right? So for me right now, I've narrowed down my focus areas to my podcast and to singing, voice coaching, right? And figuring that all out. And that's really helped me to feel like I have kind of more of a schedule, which is good because while working with church and everything, you want to make sure that you're balancing everything as much as possible and whatnot. So I think that the planning aspect is really important. But honestly, as soon as you start to plan, as soon as you start to say, okay, I'm going to do this, this, and this, that self-doubt is going to come up again. And I think you just have to expect it and know that it might come, because that's what happens when you start to take ownership of what you have been given and you start to take action towards it. The self-doubt might come even while you're making those plans, right? And even while you're planning to execute them. So how are you going to make sure that you're staying in it and you're not giving up on, okay, I've already made these plans. This is what I'm doing. I'm auditioning for this. I'm growing to this Estelle's voice coaching, right? I'm listening to this podcast to encourage me today. Okay, how are you going to combat that self-doubt when it comes, right? And so again, changing that mindset, reminding yourself, okay, it's not about just me. There are people that are waiting for me to step into what God has called me to do, to use my gifts and to share them. And the God who placed them in me, he has a purpose for these gifts, for this creativity that I have. And I have a responsibility, a beautiful responsibility, not something that should feel heavy but something that should feel purposeful, right? This purposeful responsibility to do something about it. And I think reminding yourself that it's not just about you. It's not just about me. It's bigger than us. And that sounded so cheesy, but it's true. It's actually true. It's 100% true, right? And we want everything that we do to have an eternal impact, and you can't have an eternal impact if you're not using the gifts God has given you right now, starting today. So yeah, that's all I gotta say. I gotta round up, but this felt good for me to get off my chest. Like, this is definitely something that I deal with too, so you're not alone. And I hope this was helpful to you and encouraging to you, or at least just made you feel like, okay, I'm not alone. We all struggle with self-doubt. We all doubt ourselves. And we all have to overcome that every single time and choose to instead walk in faith and to use our gifts and to do something about the gifts we've been given. I always talk about creative gifts because that's my thing. I talk about performing arts. That's what I love. But whatever your gift is, it can still be applied there. But I know that if you're following me, if you're watching this, you're probably a creative person. If you're listening to this, you're probably a creative person. more likely than not, you're into the performing arts. So I'm right there with you. Let's keep doing this. Let's do this together. And amen. God will help us as we do that. So, all right. Without further ado, I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to sign off. Have an amazing day, and I'll talk to you later. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Creatively by Estelle. I hope you feel encouraged by today's episode as you start this week. And if you have a moment, I would love for you to just share this episode with a friend if you liked it, or with someone who you think this could be encouraging to. It would really help the show. Also, if you really loved this episode, if you wouldn't mind going to Apple Podcasts and leaving a review and rating this show, it would really help us reach more people through this show and grow our Creatively community. All right, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next week.